Hershey's hit with shrapnel, but the fact that he was able to kick it away saved his life. He hit some barbed wire, and he gets caught up in the coils, and he sliced up pretty good.
No reason to put any much money into their heads. I know we can, but like it's up to mountains. Always takes longer.
What Hershey did was phenomenally heroic. But I don't think he thought himself at the time as being a hero. He just did what he felt he had to do to save as many of his men as possible.
At that point, I saw Hershey, and I was never so happy in all my life to see anybody. And Hershey came over immediately to me and responded with whatever first aid he could give me.
I thought you brought the phone. Just take it easy, Joe.
He tried to control the bleeding. So I worked hard because all we had was a compress, and he put some sulfur on the wounds because I had just supposed to prevent the infections. It was honestly an impossible situation. As my luck would have it, he was there. Because of our friendship, I knew then and there that Hershey was trying to take care of me as best he could.
Someone will come for us. Right, Hershey? They'll come for us.
Then they told us at that time that we were going on a march to a camp up north. And I knew that I couldn't make it if I couldn't walk. Hershey carried me about 10 miles.
Once you're taken prisoner, you've got to get to the prisoner of war camps in North Korea, and the only way you can get there is by walking. These men are marched for hundreds of miles.
Joe's in bad shape. If a person falls out of the column, they're either beaten or stabbed with bayonets, killed inside a ditch.
The Chinese got tired of Hershey and I slowing up the column. They ordered Hershey to put me at the side of the road. Hershey at first refused. The Chinese threatened to shoot him. I told Hershey, please, let me die. So Hershey laid me at the side of the road. He said, I'm sorry, Joe. I said, I thank you for what you've done, Hershey. I really appreciate it. And it was kind of a goodbye of friends. I thought I knew what was going to happen after that.
It was unlikely either would live long enough to see the other again. Joe, direly wounded, and Hershey, facing an odyssey that for many would turn deadly.
Finally, Hershey is put in a Chinese prisoner of war camp. Never given any type of medical attention. It was a situation where if you were wounded, you either died or you survived.
You were living on the floor, you were sleeping on hay. Disease and starvation were just commonplace. And so Hershey was watching his friends die left and right.
If you look at the death rates, 40% of all American POWs die before they ever make it home.
At that time, my brother Hirsch was missing. They didn't know where. I was a little scared. I think maybe it was our believe in God, our prayers. I think that was what kept all of us going mainly was our prayers.
The communist offensive was stopped cold. The Chinese Reds had not only failed in their attempt to retake Seoul, but their entire massive attack had been completely broken up.
The truce is made in 1953. In operation called Big Switch, they started exchanging groups of American POWs with Chinese and North Korean POWs.
When Hirsch was missing, and actually my father had called, he said, "Well, watch for the paper, make sure his name comes out. If he's listed as prisoner, he'll be home." And my dad said, "He's going to come home, he's going to come home, and he's going to come home alive."
American families, including the Miyamoras, could only pray that their boys would be among those coming home. But the odds were little better than 50-50. Just 3,800 of the 7,000 POWs had survived the horrors of the North Korean camps.
It was 6 o'clock in the morning, and my husband's sister came knocking on our door and said, "I heard your brother's name. He was released as a prisoner."
At 5'10", Hershey now weighed less than 100 pounds, but he was alive. The realization that his nightmare might be over dawned slowly.
We were the last groups in Korea. August 20th, 1953, got word that we were going home. We had to get on a truck. Finally, we reached the destination. We could see the Star-Spangled Banner flag fluttering in the breeze. And well, that was such a beautiful sight. I said, "Wow, now we're going to actually be home."
For the Miyamoras, years of separation and worry were finally over.
The whole family went out to the San Francisco dock, but we saw the ship, and the gangplank was lowered. And the first one down the gangplank by himself was Hershey.
When I saw Terry in my life, it was such a great feeling to see her again. Because at times I never thought I'd ever see her again.
Another hero of Korea is welcomed back by General Glasgow. Then he sweeps his wife into an embrace. He is Sergeant Hiroshi Miyamura.
And the rest of us were at the bottom there, and my father was there, and he liked me too. I was glad my father was alive to see this.
We didn't question him too much because we knew he had gone through quite a bit. So we just waited until he was able to talk about it. It took him a little time.
The larger community of Gallup, New Mexico, was eager to welcome home this brave but bewildered hero.
We arrived in Gallup. It was a pretty good sized crowd there. I just didn't expect anything like it. It just caught me off guard. I never had thought the time would come on like they did. I was told to get on top of this convertible that I was to ride. Immediately when I got home, there was a letter waiting for me, and it was from the White House. It said I was to report to Washington, D.C.
We are gathered here to symbolize the gratitude of Americans to 7 young men
who have won your Medal of Honor?
On December, I was receiving a medal from the president, and I was to be the first one out there to receive the medal. And well, I'm so nervous.
The President of the United States of America has awarded in the name of Congress Medal of Honor to Sergeant Hiroshi H. Miyamoto.
Leland.
The machine gun squad leader, aware of the imminent danger for his men, and hesitating to jet from the ship, wielding his bayonet in close hand-to-hand combat.
The president said, I'm kind of nervous myself. This is one of the first things I'm going to put around the soldier neck. That didn't really help me that much. But everything was a blur after that. Unbelievable. It's like I'm living in a dream. I never, ever thought I would receive the Medal of Honor for doing my duty, which I thought that's what I was doing was my duty.
My father was able to see his son receive the Medal of Honor. It was really something. He was suspected of cancer. And he said, no, don't feel sad. I think he says, look how many people haven't experienced what I have.
I've always felt humble among people when I wear the medal. I know a lot of us wear this medal, although we never received any recognition.
After the war, I picked up a Newsweek magazine, and I was just scanning through it, and I looked at this picture, and I looked. It was Hershey, a skinny, little, emaciated fellow, about 90 pounds, and wearing army pajamas. I said, boy, I better head on down to Gallup and see Hershey. And I drove down to Gallup. I found out where Hershey was working at the time, and I walked into the store, and Hershey turned around and saw me, turned white as a sheet.
Here comes Joe walking through the door. I couldn't believe what I was seeing.
And he said, my God, you're dead. I said, no, Hershey, I'm alive. Thanks to you. And I was in a big house and hugged me. And we've been friends ever since.
Our family on the home front, Hershey embraced family life, focusing on fatherhood.
I put the war out of my mind. My concentration was family. Raising them, sending them to school.
Hard worker. He was always up early, worked late. By the time we were born, he had already had his service station. My dad never really talked much about his war experience, and I guess that was the case with a lot of soldiers in their own way, and didn't want to tell their family what they experienced.
Both he and my mother, they were very humble, and they didn't want a lot of attention. They really didn't understand what the Medal of Honor was. He's still not comfortable bringing this attention to himself, but because he feels like a responsibility and obligation, like, okay, I'll do it.
Being his only grandchild that's in the military, I really have a lot of pride in being able to carry on his legacy. Freshman year at the academy, you start to learn a lot about military history, and you learn about the significance of the Medal of Honor, and that's when it really clicked to me what he's done and what that meant for the military community. I hope that his legacy carries on down past my children.
He's talking about it much more now than he did even then.
Only 40. Wow.
He feels obligated to the veterans of the Korean War because he feels like the public doesn't know as much about the Korean War as they should. And so he feels a responsibility for that, as well as for the Japanese American veterans.
I just hope my legacy will show that I tried to help my fellow Japanese Americans, prove that throughout America that we were and are cruel little American citizen.
In 2007, this small community showed once again how proud it is of its larger-than-life hero.
I remember Hershey calling all of us and telling us that the high school would be named after Hershey. And the namesake of our school into the European Union.
I want to first congratulate you seniors on reaching your first step into adulthood. Now, the road is going to get a little harder. And I'm here to teach you a word and try to remember this word. It is perseverance.
His main message that he always says is never quit, never give up, no matter what you're going through. If you have faith, you make it through.
It's so easy to give up. But if you persevere, you will eventually achieve your goals. I learned so much during that 27 months that changed my outlook towards life. And that's why every opportunity I have, I like to tell people about not giving up. They're sick of other bad lives. They're not John Wayne gung-ho types. They do these extraordinary things. And these are ordinary people who do extraordinary things because they care for their people. And then you meet this quiet, modest, self-abasing man who never, ever brags about anything. He would just tell you, hey, I was just doing my job. And I was lucky enough to survive. And I was fortunate that they gave me this medal.
Percy did what needed to be done. And what he was most focused on was keeping our family alive. It was almost not fair that they were there thrust in a very difficult situation at 17 years old or 18 years old. Some family back in the United States of America was hoping that those kids would return. And Hershey was bound and determined to do everything he could to make that happen. And he did.
If you think about it, Hershey and Joel, how many people did you do everything? That's what life is, it's everything. And those guys are willing to give everything to each other.
Well, it's quite possible that can't, but we would have a lot of trouble with this guy. No, we even said that. That was the best looking guy in the country because he should have done it. Hershey would never tell you to live until they rejected it. Hershey knew instinctively that he had to get his true self together, and he did. And he did that because he's a leader. Without the God, he's a leader.
My grandpa and Joanella, to this day, they are still so close and still so bonded.
7 decades after the war, the two remain utterly fearless.
He's just so positive, he's so upbeat, he's eccentric, is the big thing. He's just willing to try things.
Here we are on our way up to 13,000 feet. How do you feel? Still fine so far? You excited?
Hershey, what did you think about that?
That was great. Outstanding, Doug.
Not many people have come within a hair's breadth of internment, fought their way into the service, and endured the grueling brutality of years in a POW camp. But Sergeant Hiroshi Miyamura seems to wear his medal and his burdens lightly. The high high school that bears his name commissioned a statue in his honor. But Hershey alone serves as a humble, joyous, living monument to the very best of America, the country where he and his family worked so hard to belong.
Where did we find such men? We find them where we've always found them. In our villages and towns, on our city streets, in our shops and on our farms. Summoned a degree of courage that stirs wonder and respect and an overpowering pride in all of us. It recognizes gallantry that goes above and beyond the call of duty.
We may not always hear of their success, but they are there in the thick of the fight in the dark of night, achieving their mission.
Once you've already crossed that line where you expect not to survive, you are enabled to perform remarkable acts of heroism.
In December of 1944, the Americans were going through a rude awakening. We think the war is almost over. We think the Germans are defeated and maybe the war would be over at Christmas. It was definitely not over by Christmas. Hitler had been sort of saving some of his best troops for this last German offensive of the war.
The Germans had brought a number of divisions down into France. They're making their last best attempt to gain some ground and break the Allied line.
Very much alive, German army gathered its forces in the forest isle to strike one strong decisive blow at the American army.
We don't expect these offensives, so we don't have a big reserve. There's no tank divisions to call upon, and it's sort of a pretty desperate defense of these towns. Hugh Vitolo and his unit arrived in Hatton, France. They had been fighting in and around Hatton for about a month. So a lot of the houses and buildings were destroyed, damaged. His Peter help.
Theo and a handful of other members from his squad were given the task to stay in place and defend and buy time, delaying the German advance while the rest of his infantry battalion can withdraw from the city.
What was the doing that goddamn place?
I'm William. I'm going to leave you to what then. I'm good.
He will be. Come on, dude. Get something done.
This is a level of warfare that very few living people have seen. The violence and the danger and the risk, the sound, large armies coming down the main street, aircraft overhead, with mortars and artillery. The buildings are destroyed in many cases, but they're made of stone or brick, which allows a great place to go to provide some protection from bullets or from shrapnel, and even from being seen. The Germans are attacking with an armored force, so tanks are coming down the streets with infantrymen behind them. Vito Bertoldo and the other members of his squad have only rifles and automatic weapons. They've got to stop them and provide some time and space so that the rest of the unit can retreat from the city or withdraw from the city.
The orders were for the men to hold at all costs. And that meant no retreat. They had to man this line and they had to hold it. That action at Hatton, it is a piece of a bigger puzzle and a part of the wall that the American forces were at that point.
The Germans are attacking, they're attacking aggressively, and they've got to hold the new line of defense. It's a terrible mission, a mission nobody wants to delay the enemy because it puts you in the most dangerous place. You'd like to be on the first train out of Dodge and moving with the main force in the withdrawal, but some soldiers are going to always use it to delay the enemy and left in place. And that's where Vito was, waiting for the German attacking force.
Hey Vito, how many times?
How many times what? Before after more than once, you kept coming back. So what do you want me to stay home? Okay,
If an individual wasn't fit for service through a medical screening, they would be determined for it. It would be a medical condition, whether it's your eyesight or hearing, you would be considered for it. You'd be relieved from service.
We figured 3 days. Been eating much lately?
Sir, yeah, how pounds?
Would you take those glasses off, baby, would you? Follow my finger right here. Take a look at the chart over here, would you please? Glasses on? No glasses. Cover your right eye. And start reading from line number 5. E. R. L.
When there's a draft, of course, we want to send our strongest, our most fit, our healthiest soldiers to the front.
P. L.
That's good. Yes.
You want that one?
That's good.
Vito wasn't one of them.
One of the things that happens in World War II is initially, particularly before Pearl Harbor, we were very strict on who can serve and particularly who can volunteer. But as we need more and more manpower, we start re-looking at who's truly physically qualified and who's not. And so some men who had initially been classified 4F, they determined can in fact serve.
You men are going to be inducted in the Army of the United States. As I call your names, take one step forward.
You know, he was kind of a tough guy. Even though physically, you know, he had this eyesight problem, he was a tough kid growing up. If you think about the typical Italian-American family of that time, patriarchal certainly, but in a real sense, the mother was kind of the glue of the family. And in Vito's case, when he was young, his mother died. That glue dissolved for Vito's father to be a coal miner and to take care of 5 children. It would have been almost impossible. And so Vito and some of his siblings went to the orphanage. And so growing up, it made him probably tougher.
I don't think Vito's profile, a slender built man with poor eyesight, was really made out to be a frontline infantryman, but he wanted to serve.
He was commissioned for limited service. He could only perform certain services. And for in Vito's case, it turns out he would be a cook.
Regardless of what your position is, you're still an infantry soldier. So the expectation is that if you go to combat, that you are expected to not only know how to use your weapon, but you know how to move soldiers, you know how to defend yourself, and you know how to kill the enemy.
That's where all of our training starts. We all learn to use that weapon, whether it's a cook or whether it's a mechanic. We all are familiar with that rifle, and we all know how to use it.
Well, once he was in
think he felt he could do more. And had asked for a transfer into the infantry, and he thought